Ashley Wadsworth, a 19-year-old woman from Vernon, British Columbia, Canada, embarked on what she hoped would be the adventure of a lifetime. After 6 years of a long-distance online relationship, she traveled across the globe to meet Jack Seel, her 22-year-old boyfriend from Chelmsford, England. Their love story, forged through years of virtual connection, seemed destined for a fairy tale ending. However, beneath the surface of their relationship lay troubling signs of control, manipulation, and growing instability. What began as a hopeful romance tragically unraveled into one of the most disturbing cases of domestic abuse and violence, leaving Ashley's family and friends devastated. This case raises profound questions. How did Ashley's trust in Jack blind her to the red flags? How did a story of love and devotion descend into a heartbreaking cycle of abuse, culminating in an unimaginable tragedy? In exploring Ashley's story, we confront themes of love, control, and obsession, and uncover lessons about the hidden dangers in seemingly loving relationships. Ashley Wadsworth was born on July 25, 2002, in the picturesque city of Vernon, British Columbia, Canada. She grew up surrounded by a large and close-knit extended family of more than 50 relatives, all living in the same community. The younger daughter of Kenneth and Christy, Ashley shared a particularly strong bond with her older sister, Haley. After her parents divorced, her father remarried, adding two half-siblings, Crystal and Brandon, to her life. Despite these changes, Ashley maintained deep ties to her family, cherishing her role as an aunt to her beloved niece, Paisley, Haley's daughter. Ashley's vibrant personality and adventurous spirit defined her. She was outgoing, warm, and universally loved by those who knew her. She thrived on outdoor activities such as swimming, horseback riding, skiing, and tennis, and had a creative side expressed through playing the clarinet. Her lively presence and infectious sense of humor made her the heart of every gathering. Even in her teenage years, Ashley exhibited a fearless curiosity about the world, balancing her family connections with a desire for independence and exploration. This zest for life and her innate optimism were qualities her family and friends deeply admired, making her loss all the more devastating. Jack Sepple was born on January 9, 1999, in Essex, England. He grew up in a household with his mother, Tracy Dalton, and stepfather, Ricky, but his family life was marked by instability. Jack had limited contact with his late father and was estranged from his brother, Jordan. His most stable familial connection was with his sister Nadia, with whom he maintained a close relationship. Jack was often described as a paradox, a charming and humorous individual with an unpredictable and troubled personality. Beneath his outward charisma lay a history of volatile and aggressive behavior that became a defining feature of his relationships. Known for his obsessive tendencies, Jack displayed patterns of control and manipulation even in previous relationships. His actions frequently escalated to coercion and violence, often resulting in restraining orders and legal consequences. These troubling patterns hinted at a darker side, which eventually culminated in a tragic series of events during his relationship with Ashley Wadsworth. Despite occasional attempts at remorse, Jack's behavior revealed a persistent cycle of jealousy, emotional volatility, and unchecked aggression that would tragically spiral out of control. Ashley Wadsworth first connected with Jack Sepple in 2015 through social media, marking the beginning of a relationship that would span 6 years and ultimately lead to devastating consequences. At the time, Ashley was a bright and optimistic 12-year-old living in Vernon, British Columbia, Canada, while Jack was a 15-year-old teenager from Essex, England. Their friendship quickly grew as they bonded over shared interests, humor, and hours of conversations online. Over time, their connection deepened into a romantic relationship. Jack became an ever-present figure in Ashley's life through virtual calls, text messages, and online interactions. Although they had never met in person, their relationship became central to Ashley's daily life, and Jack's influence grew stronger. However, Jack's behavior began to show troubling signs of control and obsession. Jack often displayed jealousy and possessiveness, especially when it came to Ashley's interactions with others. During their arguments, Ashley would occasionally block Jack on social media, but he found ways to contact her through new accounts or mutual friends. His relentless determination to maintain contact raised concerns among Ashley's family and friends. One alarming incident involved Jack tattooing Ashley's name on his arm, a gesture that her parents viewed as excessive and unsettling. Despite these red flags, Ashley remained committed to Jack, believing in his affection and the connection they had built over the years. However, her family expressed serious reservations about the relationship. They were particularly uneasy about her desire to travel overseas to meet Jack in person, fearing for her safety. For several years, Ashley's family firmly restricted her from making such a trip, hoping to protect her from potential harm. As Ashley entered her late teens, her growing independence allowed her to take greater control of her decisions. She began saving money from her jobs at fast food restaurants and retail stores, determined to turn her dream of meeting Jack into a reality. By 2021, Ashley had saved enough to purchase a plane ticket and make arrangements for her first-ever international trip. On November 12, 2021, Ashley, then 19, boarded a plane to England with plans to meet Jack for the first time. She had obtained a 6-month tourist visa, envisioning a long visit where she could finally be with the man she had spent so many years connecting with online. This trip also marked a major milestone for Ashley, as it was her first time traveling abroad. Her excitement was palpable. On November 13, 2021, the day they met in person at London Gatwick Airport, Ashley updated her profile picture on social media to a photo of the two of them together. She was eager to share her happiness with her friends and family back in Canada. In the early days of her stay, Jack appeared to embody the caring and loving partner Ashley believed him to be, showering her with attention and affection. Ashley's family, though still apprehensive, supported her decision to follow her heart, hoping that her instincts about Jack would prove right. Little did they know that this seemingly joyful reunion would mark the beginning of a harrowing ordeal that would shatter their lives forever. Shortly after Ashley moved into Jack's small apartment in a public housing complex, his controlling tendencies began to surface. What started as seemingly harmless requests for her attention quickly turned into obsessive monitoring. Jack insisted on knowing Ashley's every move, forbidding her from speaking with neighbors and discouraging her from engaging with anyone outside their relationship. When Ashley expressed a desire to attend church services with missionaries she had been introduced to before her trip, Jack outright forbade it. Despite his restrictions, Ashley secretly maintained contact with the missionaries via text messages, carefully deleting their conversations to avoid provoking his anger. As weeks passed, Ashley confided to the missionaries about Jack's increasingly controlling behavior. She admitted she felt trapped and knew she deserved better, yet she remained determined to make the relationship work. Deep down, she believed that Jack was capable of change and that her love and support could help him overcome his issues. Her optimism and faith in their bond blinded her to the growing danger she faced. Jack's emotional manipulations soon escalated to physical violence. Just 6 weeks after Ashley's arrival, Jack texted his mother, admitting he had struck Ashley during a jealous rage. By this point, Ashley had begun documenting her injuries privately, taking photos of bruises and other marks on her body. She shared these with her older sister Haley, who was horrified and repeatedly begged her to leave Jack and return home. But Ashley refused, fearing her family would despise Jack if they knew the full extent of his behavior. Her deep attachment to Jack and belief in his ability to change kept her from walking away, even as the abuse became more severe. The violence continued to escalate. In early January 2022, during a heated argument, Jack smashed a beer glass over Ashley's head, leaving her injured and shaken. Distraught, Ashley called Haley on a video chat while trying to clean up the shattered glass. Haley could see Jack pacing in the background, shouting angrily as Ashley tried to minimize the incident. Haley begged her sister to return home, but Ashley once again insisted that Jack could improve and that her love could make a difference. In late December 2021, the situation became even more complicated when Jack attempted suicide by overdosing on anxiety medication. Ashley called for an ambulance, and Jack was hospitalized. Following his recovery, Ashley was officially designated as his caregiver, taking responsibility for administering his medication through a lockbox provided by medical staff. This new role placed immense pressure on Ashley, who now felt even more obligated to stay by Jack's side. She believed that leaving him in such a vulnerable state would only worsen his mental health and potentially lead to another suicide attempt. Despite Ashley's unwavering support, Jack's behavior showed no signs of improvement. By late January 2022, his controlling tendencies and violent outbursts had reached a breaking point. During another argument, Jack accused Ashley of infidelity, becoming enraged when he believed she was hiding things from him. He threw a candle and a television remote at her, leaving her injured once again. This time, Ashley began to seriously consider leaving. She contacted her family, and together they started making plans for her to return to Canada. Her family booked a flight for February 3rd, 2022, and Ashley appeared ready to leave Jack behind. However, as the date of her departure approached, Ashley's resolve began to waver. She still clung to the belief that Jack could return to being the caring, loving person she had fallen in love with over the years. She convinced herself that the Jack she knew from their years of online communication was still somewhere beneath his violent and controlling behavior. Trapped in a cycle of abuse, apologies, and fleeting moments of hope, Ashley struggled to break free. Her decision to stay, even for a few more days, would ultimately seal her fate in the most tragic way imaginable. The events of February 1st, 2022 marked the culmination of the escalating of violence and control Jack Sepple had inflicted on Ashley Wadsworth during her time in Chelmsford. That morning, Jack became enraged after accusing Ashley of infidelity, convinced she was hiding something from him. This led to a heated and violent altercation during which Ashley attempted to seek help. Barefoot and visibly distressed, she ran to a neighbor's door, crying and bleeding from a cut on her hand. She explained that Jack had attacked her, smashed her phone, and even thrown their puppy Winston against the wall. Despite the neighbor's pleas to call the police and to accompany her to safety, Ashley refused, fearing retaliation from Jack. She begged the neighbor not to involve authorities and returned to Jack's apartment, likely in an attempt to calm the situation. The neighbor, reluctantly honoring Ashley's request, confronted Jack directly. Jack appeared calm and apologetic, convincing the neighbor that he had things under control. This brief moment of intervention was tragically not enough to prevent the horrors that would follow. Shortly after Ashley returned to the apartment, Jack's rage escalated beyond control. Sometime between 12:38 p.m. and 12:45 p.m., Jack strangled Ashley until she stopped breathing. He then retrieved a knife from the kitchen and proceeded to stab her over 90 times in her chest and abdomen. The brutality of the attack left no doubt about his intent, and his actions afterward revealed his disturbing state of mind. Following the murder, Jack showed no immediate remorse. Instead, he casually carried on with his day, even playing video games in the apartment while Ashley's lifeless body lay nearby. He changed his profile picture on social media to one of him and Ashley, captioned with the chilling phrase, "Always mine." Jack also recorded a video message addressed to Ashley's sister Haley. In the video, Jack expressed love for Ashley and apologized, claiming he couldn't let her go and that his mind wasn't functioning properly. In the background of the video, Ashley's body was visible. Although Jack never sent the video, it became a crucial piece of evidence in the investigation. During this time, Ashley's family in Vernon, Canada, awoke to a series of desperate messages she had sent earlier in the day, pleading for help. Alarmed by the messages and the lack of further responses, they contacted a friend of Ashley's in Chelmsford to check on her. When the friend received no response at Jack's apartment, he called the police, who arrived at the scene at approximately 4:13 p.m. Meanwhile, Jack called his sister, Nadia, and confessed to the murder. He even showed her Ashley's body during a video call, further confirming the horrific events. Upon entering the apartment, police discovered Jack covered in blood. Ashley's body bore the evidence of a prolonged and brutal attack, with injuries consistent with strangulation and over 90 stab wounds. Jack was immediately arrested and taken into custody. During questioning, he admitted to the murder, claiming he had experienced a psychotic episode. Toxicology reports later revealed that Jack had cannabis and therapeutic levels of anti-anxiety medication in his system at the time of the crime. His confession, the video recording, and the physical evidence left no doubt about his guilt. Back in Canada, Ashley's family received the devastating confirmation of her death from British authorities. Their worst fears, ignited by her earlier desperate messages, had come true. The tragedy marked the conclusion of an abusive relationship that had spiraled out of control, leaving Ashley's family and friends grappling with an unimaginable loss. The discovery of Ashley's body and the subsequent investigation into Jack's history would reveal a pattern of violence that had been overlooked for years, sparking calls for better measures to protect victims of domestic abuse. The investigation into Ashley Wadsworth's murder, uncovered a deeply troubling history of violence and abusive behavior by Jack Sepple. As the evidence mounted, it became clear that Ashley's tragic death was not an isolated incident, but rather the culmination of a long-standing pattern of coercive and violent tendencies. Jack's criminal record revealed multiple prior incidents of abuse, manipulation, and violence in his past relationships. These included physical assaults, false imprisonment, and ongoing threats against former partners. In one particularly alarming case, Jack had violated a restraining order against an ex-girlfriend and hacked her social media accounts to humiliate her. In another instance, he had been accused of choking and imprisoning a partner in his home. Despite these serious offenses, many charges against Jack were dropped when victims failed to testify, allowing his behavior to escalate unchecked. Toxicology reports conducted after Ashley's murder indicated that Jack had traces of cannabis in his system, but no substances that could justify or explain his violent actions. Additionally, psychiatric evaluations found him mentally fit to stand trial, ruling out any claims of diminished responsibility due to mental health issues. Faced with overwhelming evidence, including video footage he recorded after the murder, his confession to his sister, and physical evidence at the crime scene, Jack Sepple pleaded guilty to Ashley's murder. His admission of guilt spared Ashley's family the trauma of a prolonged trial, but did little to ease the profound pain of their loss. On October 10, 2022, Jack Sepple was sentenced to life imprisonment, with eligibility for parole after 23 years. The sentencing judge emphasized the premeditated and brutal nature of the crime, stating that Jack's actions were fueled by jealousy, possessiveness, and an utter lack of regard for Ashley's life. While the guilty plea and sentencing brought a sense of closure to Ashley's grieving family, they were left grappling with the haunting question of whether more could have been done to prevent her death. Jack's imprisonment ensured that he would no longer pose a threat to others, but for Ashley's family, justice came too late to save the bright and loving young woman who had so much ahead of her. Following the tragic death of Ashley Wadsworth, her family became vocal advocates for increased awareness and better protections against domestic abuse. One of the key issues they highlighted was the lack of accessible information about Jack Sepple's history of violence. Despite his extensive criminal record, which included previous incidents of abuse, restraining orders, and coercive behavior, Ashley's family was unaware of the danger he posed when she traveled to England. Ashley's parents expressed profound frustration at the inability to uncover Jack's dangerous past before it was too late. They revealed that they had conducted online searches about Jack before Ashley's trip, but found no alarming details. This limitation underscored a critical gap in public access to information about individuals with histories of domestic violence. In the UK, Clare's Law, officially known as the Domestic Violence Disclosure Scheme, allows individuals to request information about a partner's criminal record concerning domestic abuse. It also permits police to proactively disclose such information when they believe someone is at risk. However, Ashley's family, living in Canada, was unaware of this policy and unable to make use of it. Even within the UK, the process can be slow, and disclosure is not guaranteed, leaving many potential victims without vital information. Ashley's parents have since called for reforms to make systems like Clare's Law more widely known and easily accessible. They believe proactive measures, such as mandatory background checks for individuals with repeated offenses, could save lives. The family also emphasized the need for greater international collaboration in addressing domestic abuse, as Ashley's case demonstrated how victims can unknowingly enter dangerous situations when crossing borders. Ashley's mother, in particular, voiced the heartbreaking thought that if she had known about Clare's Law and requested a disclosure, the family might have been able to prevent Ashley's trip. This advocacy for reform is now a crucial part of Ashley's legacy, as her family strives to ensure that other families have access to the information and tools they need to protect their loved ones from similar fates. The tragic loss of Ashley Wadsworth left an indelible mark on her family, friends, and communities both in Canada and England. In the wake of her death, Ashley's loved ones honored her memory and began a journey of advocacy to address systemic issues surrounding domestic violence. Shortly after the sentencing of Jack Sepple, Ashley's family held a solemn vigil in Chelmsford, England, near the location where she had spent her final days. Joined by supporters, they walked through the neighborhood, laying flowers and wreaths on the doorstep of Jack's apartment in her memory. The vigil was an emotional moment of reflection and solidarity as neighbors, some of whom had attended Jack's trial, gathered to show their support for Ashley's grieving family. Following the vigil, Ashley's remains were repatriated to Canada. Her family organized a funeral that took place on February 23, 2022, attended by hundreds of mourners in Vernon, British Columbia. The ceremony was also live-streamed, allowing friends and supporters who couldn't attend in person to pay their respects. During the service, Ashley was remembered as a vibrant, adventurous young woman with an infectious sense of humor and a deep love for her family. The family received an outpouring of support from their community, raising significant funds through a crowdfunding campaign. These donations not only helped cover the costs of repatriating Ashley's remains and the funeral, but also allowed the family to establish a scholarship foundation in her name. Additionally, part of the funds was donated to a domestic violence support organization, ensuring that Ashley's story could contribute to helping other victims escape abusive situations. Through their ongoing advocacy, Ashley's family has shone a light on the systemic failures that allow abusers to continue their cycles of violence. They have spoken out about the importance of domestic violence awareness, calling for reforms to policies like Clare's Law and increased international cooperation in protecting potential victims. Their efforts are a testament to their determination to turn their unimaginable loss into a force for change, ensuring that Ashley's legacy is one of hope, education, and justice for those in similar circumstances. Ashley Wadsworth's story is a heartbreaking reminder of the dangers that can lurk within seemingly loving relationships. Her tragic death underscores the urgent need to recognize the warning signs of abuse and take proactive measures to protect those at risk. Ashley's case demonstrates how cycles of control, manipulation, and violence can escalate, often leaving victims feeling trapped and isolated. Awareness initiatives, such as Clare's Law in the UK, are vital tools that can save lives. These policies empower individuals to access critical information about a partner's history of domestic abuse. However, Ashley's case highlights significant barriers that remain. Many people, like Ashley and her family, are unaware of these protections, and the process for obtaining such information can be slow and inconsistent. Streamlining and expanding access to such resources is essential to ensuring that vulnerable individuals receive timely and effective support. This tragic case also calls attention to the importance of sharing stories like Ashley's. By shining a light on the realities of domestic abuse, survivors, families, and advocates can help others recognize the risks and seek help before it is too late. Raising awareness not only honors the memory of those lost to domestic violence, but also fosters a culture of vigilance and prevention. We invite you to share your own stories and experiences to help shed light on this critical issue. Whether you face similar challenges, supported a loved one through an abusive situation, or wish to advocate for change, your voice can make a difference. Together, we can work toward creating a world where individuals like Ashley are protected, supported, and empowered to live free from fear and harm. Let Ashley's story serve as a powerful call to action, to recognize the signs of abuse, to educate ourselves and others, and to push for systemic changes that will save lives. Don't forget to click the subscribe button and hit the notification bell to stay updated with our latest stories and investigations. Let's uncover the truth together. Your support can make a real difference.